Hi friends, welcome to Beautifully Bookish Bethany. Today's video is an updated and expanded version of a video I did several years ago, comparing and contrasting different audiobook platforms. So quite a while ago, I made this video, which I'll link up above, when I was still relatively early in my audiobook listening journey, and a lot of people are continuing to find that video, but now, years down the road, I have added to and expanded my roster of platforms that I use for audiobooks, and so I thought it might be helpful to give you guys an overview of some of your different options if you are an audiobook listener, what different platforms do, which ones I prefer for different things, and why you might want to make different choices about which platform or platforms you use. This video is going to include both paid platforms and library related platforms. Let's start with the library because I am a big fan of using my library for audiobooks when I'm able to do so. I know that people have different levels of access depending on the community or the country that they live in, but if you live in a place where you do have access to a good library with a decent amount of digital content, you might not know that there are apps available where you can link the app to your library account and download audiobooks to listen to on your phone or other device. This is fantastic. The app that I have typically used is Overdrive, although you can now get the updated Libby app, which from what I understand allows you to speed up your audiobooks more than Overdrive does. And this is also a thing that not everybody realizes you can do. If an audio narrator is narrating too slowly for you, you can speed up your audiobook. Personally, because of my reading speed and the way that my brain works, I find it distracting and hard to pay attention to regular speed audiobooks, and so I do listen at faster speeds because that's the way I'm able to process. So it's worth noting that for all of these platforms, I am going to give you some information about the speeds at which you can listen to your audiobooks for people who want that information. Some people are happy listening to it at regular 1x speed. Some people might do like 1.5 or 2x speed. And then some of you, like me, might go beyond that depending on the book, depending on the narrator, especially if you're reading along physically. And so I think it's useful to know which platforms give you some of those options. Overdrive specifically only goes up to 2x speed, which again, for a lot of people, that's totally fine. But if you're looking for a platform that's going to let you speed up your audiobook listening even more, you might want to look at Libby, which from what I understand does allow you to go up a little bit higher. Another app that some libraries have access to is Hoopla. Personally, I haven't used it. I probably should look into it because I know a lot of people love Hoopla for audiobooks and for things like manga and graphic novels. Again, I haven't used this. I think the way Hoopla works is that depending on your library system and what they've paid for, you have access to a certain number of credits to use every month to check out different things. But again, you can listen to audiobooks on Hoopla and get them through your library if that is a program that your library has signed up for. One note I do want to make real quick, for anybody who is living in an area where there's not a lot of funding for local libraries, your library just doesn't have a lot of materials or doesn't have a lot of digital materials, one thing that you could explore is the possibility of getting an out-of-state Brooklyn library card. The Brooklyn Library has an amazing database of books, and people who don't live in Brooklyn can actually get a library card for $50 a year, which if you're a big audiobook listener isn't all that much. So again, if you're living in a place where you don't have good library access and you're looking for a way to get books through a library system, that might be something to check out. I will have links for that in the video description down below if it's something that you want to explore. Moving on from library platforms, let's talk about some of the different paid platforms that exist for listening to audiobooks and their pros and cons. The biggest and probably most well-known platform for audiobooks is Audible, which is connected to Amazon. Now, there are some pros and cons. I know there are people who choose not to support Audible because they don't want to support Amazon in general. They don't like the chokehold that Amazon has over books and the publishing industry, which I think is a valid concern. As an avid audiobook listener, I use a variety of platforms, which does include Audible, but I respect the fact that some people, for ethical reasons, choose not to use Audible. Audible. That said, let's talk about what Audible offers for people who are interested in exploring it. Since the last time I made a video like this, Audible has changed significantly, and this is part of why I wanted to do an updated version. Since I made that video, they've introduced the Audible Plus catalog. It used to be that their basic membership was $15 a month for 1 Audible credit, which you can use for any audiobook on their platform. But now there are more options. For about $8 a month, you can get an Audible Plus only membership where you don't get any credits, but you do get access to the Audible Plus catalog. Now, whether you like or don't like the Audible Plus catalog is going to have a lot to do with your reading taste and the types of genres that you listen to. There are some definite upsides. If you are a fan of classic literature, there are a lot of classics with audiobooks available through the Audible Plus catalog, which I think is pretty cool. I've made use of that. The platform has also been investing a lot into Audible original content, which again is hit and miss. Some is better than others, but I have enjoyed some of the romance novellas that they've been producing, and most of those are available through the Audible Plus catalog. Other than that, it's kind of a mixed bag. There is a good bit of romance, but it's usually going to be older or less well-known titles with some exceptions. There's some older sci-fi and fantasy titles if you're into that. For instance, I recently listened to Ursula K. Le Guin's first 3 sci-fi novels that she published. All of those are available through the Audible Plus catalog. It is worth noting though that the Audible Plus catalog does rotate. So there are books that may be available through it for a few months, and then they may rotate out and bring in new things. So it's not a static collection, it is one that is consistently ongoing. So $8 a month will give you access just to that catalog. You can listen to as many of those as you want in a given month, but you're not getting credits to purchase any audiobooks. It's more like a Netflix subscription model. The next step up from that is about $15 a month, and for that you get access to the Audible Plus catalog, and you get 1 credit a month that you can use to purchase an audiobook of your choice. This is particularly a good deal if you are a fan of reading, for instance, big adult sci-fi fantasy novels, where if you were to go buy that audiobook outright, it would cost you like $40 or $50. $15 a month is kind of a steal. One other thing that is worth noting is that if you are an Audible member, you get regular access to members only sales, which are often a pretty good deal. It might be get 2 titles for 1 credit from a range of options. There might be things that are on sale for like $5. This is something that I probably take more advantage of than I should, but there are some really good sales that happen through Audible. Now, if you are a big audiobook listener and a math nerd like me, you might want to consider one of the yearly memberships that Audible offers, just because it ends up costing a lot less per credit if you bundle it all at once. So in this way, instead of doing a monthly payment, you do a lump sum once a year, and they give you all of those credits all at once. You can do a yearly membership where you get 12 credits, so the equivalent of 1 a month, or you can do one where you do 24 credits, which is the equivalent of 2 a month. The upside to doing the 24 credit a year membership is that when you average it out, each credit ends up coming out to under $9 a piece, which is a pretty good deal if you were going to be spending all that money anyway. However, if you are just a casual audiobook listener, you don't listen to a lot of audiobooks, something like that might be excessive and you may end up with credits that you're not actually using. So depending on how much of your reading this is, may determine what you decide to do with that. In terms of speed, the Audible app goes up to 3.5 times speed, which is fantastic. I don't think I've seen anything that goes faster than 3.5 times speed, but that's what you get from Audible. So I do think the Audible has some things going for it, especially if you are an avid audiobook listener. I think there is a good argument to be made for why you may want to have a subscription. That said, if you are only going to be listening to about 1 a month, or if you're looking to supplement Audible, you really should check out Libby.fm, because I do love what they stand for. I think they're a fantastic company, and I love their app functionality as well. The great thing about Libby.fm is that a percentage of their profits go to support local indie bookstores, and if you want to, you can actually designate which indie bookstore the money from your purchases will go to benefit. That is awesome. I love anything that is supporting indie bookstores because I think they're really important and they are something worth supporting. I do shop at my local indie bookstores regularly, and I am a big fan of what Libra FM is doing. Similar to Audible, they have a subscription package that is $15 a month for 1 credit that you can use on any audiobook that they carry on their platform, which is great. The other thing that's cool about Libra FM though is that every month they have titles that are on sale, and even if you're not a monthly member, you have access to the on sale titles. So whereas with Audible, you have to already be a subscribed member to get access to their sales, Libra FM opens up those sales to everyone. And this is something that I have definitely taken advantage of. I think they do some great sales. They have 3 different audio clubs where they do sale titles every month. They have one for children's books, one for YA books, and one for romance books. And I've got to say their romance picks are usually really good. I have definitely bought some of their sale titles for their Kiss Club, their like romance audiobook club. There's some good deals, and I think they have a genuinely good selection of titles most of the time. They'll sometimes run other sales as well where you can get things for a pretty good deal, so it's worth being on their mailing list for when those things are happening. But yeah, Libra FM as a company is really fantastic. I'm part of their audio influencer program, which I love. Every month they offer a few titles to influencers where you can download them for free. I love that they do this, although I will admit the majority of the titles that they offer are usually less in my wheelhouse. They tend to do a lot of like literary fiction and just like adult general fiction, which is not my cup of tea, but I have gotten some amazing like sci-fi fantasy books and other things that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise picked up through that. And just in general, I think it's a great program for them to have. I do appreciate that they tend to prioritize diverse voices in the books that they offer as influencer titles. That I think is great. You get a lot of Black, Indigenous, and person of color authors and queer authors. There's just a lot of really great work that Libra FM is doing to promote marginalized authors through their marketing and through different campaigns that they run. So overall, I'm a big fan of what they do, and if that sounds at all appealing to you, I would recommend going and checking them out. In terms of app usage, they have great integration. It works really smoothly, and they also go up to 3.5 times speed. So I think very competitive in this space and definitely a company worth checking out. Lastly, there are 2 other audiobook platforms that I want to highlight: Chirp and Scribd. Chirp is all about getting deals on audiobooks. If you're a big audiobook listener and you don't want to spend a lot of money on your audiobooks and you're always looking to get a really good deal on something, you should check out Chirp. They aggregate audiobook sales, and I have gotten things for like $2, $3, $4, $5 that normally would be significantly more expensive. For instance, I'm currently listening to the Live Ship Trader series by Robin Hobb. These are like giant, long fantasy books, and they were running a sale where a bunch of her titles were $4 and $5 each for the audiobook, which was great. So I snapped those up and got them for $5 a piece, which again, really great deal. So if you're an audiobook listener and you're looking for how can I get audiobooks for really cheap, you should subscribe to Chirp. Their app integration is pretty good and pretty straightforward. When you purchase a title on their website, it will automatically show up in your app once you've connected your account. One downside is that in terms of speed, they don't go up quite as high as some others. They only go up to 3 times speed rather than 3.5. Personally, I do find that to be adequate most of the time. So again, if you're somebody where what you're looking for is a good deal on audiobooks, you don't want to have to pay for a subscription every month or every year, you should check out Chirp because they genuinely have some great deals show up, and you can put in your preferences so that they'll send you an email alerting you when different deals come available. The last platform I want to talk about is Scribd. And I have to say, Scribd is a little bit of a mixed bag. I use them and I do like them, but there are some definite downsides. And if you're thinking of joining them, you should probably know what those are going in. Scribd is a monthly subscription service where what they try to tell you is that you can listen to an unlimited number of audiobooks that are part of their catalog. This is not really true, and we'll talk about how this works. I think their marketing is pretty misleading, and they don't have a great reputation in terms of customer service. I have heard of cases where people have had a hard time canceling their subscription once they start, but if you like what they offer and you're okay with the downsides, it might be a good addition to consider using in your audiobook listening. Scribd is a little bit more like Netflix in that you are not actually purchasing audiobooks, you are just getting access to listen to them. As of the filming of this video, Scribd subscriptions have gone up in price. They are currently $11.99 a month, and they get you access to a library of content. This includes audiobooks as well as ebooks. So if you're a big ebook reader, this might be beneficial to you. And they have a pretty good range of titles. Some brand new titles you might not get access to right away. It just sort of depends on when they add them to their library, and they do rotate things in and out. The big key here is that if you are an avid listener and you listen to a lot of audiobooks, they are going to put limits on how much you can listen to. And it does depend on how new and how popular the audiobooks are, and possibly who the publisher is, although that's a little unclear. They're not very transparent about their algorithm, so people have a lot of different theories about it. Personally, I usually find that I can listen to about 2 relatively popular audiobooks before they limit the options for the rest of the month. You can save things that you're interested in, and once you've sort of hit your limit, you'll only have less popular titles available to you until you hit your billing cycle again. So again, when they say it's like unlimited access, that's not really true. That said, I have found that sometimes if I'm listening mostly to older or less popular titles, I can sometimes get through like 4 of them in a month before I start getting rate limited. So your mileage may vary. I have heard anecdotally that in different areas of the country, they might have different titles available depending on where you are. But I will say they've sometimes been a great option when there's like a really long wait list at my library for an audiobook that I want to listen to right away for a book club or for a video purpose. I do make use of Scribd pretty regularly. The other downside to Scribd though is that they only go up to 2 times speed listening on the app. Somebody had told me that you can listen at 3 times speed on the actual website, which is true, but it's not very high quality and I wouldn't recommend doing that. Yeah, downsides are rate limitations and the fact that it only goes up to 2 times speed. So if you're somebody who wants to be listening to your audiobooks at like 2.5 or 3 times speed, you may find it a bit slow. But again, if you're somebody who just casually listens to audiobooks, doesn't listen to a lot a month, doesn't listen at very high speeds, Scribd might be a really great affordable option for you. As an avid audiobook listener myself and a person who reads a lot and reads really quickly, I pretty much make use of all of these platforms on a regular basis. That said, I realize I'm not your typical reader. I'm usually reading around 30 books a month, and usually half of those are audiobooks, so I do pull from like multiple places for where I get my audiobooks, and that is definitely not your average reader. So for you, 1 or 2 of these platforms may be adequate, or you may be happy just using library apps, which are awesome. Hopefully this is helpful for you if you're looking to compare and contrast some of these different platforms and figure out what is going to work best for you and your style and your needs. If you're interested in checking out any of these platforms, I will have some links in the video description where you can get like free trials and stuff. So if that is of interest to you, you're welcome to use those links or not. None of this is sponsored. I'm just a big fan of audiobooks, and I think this kind of content is really useful if you're trying to figure out which platform or platforms might be best for you. Talk to me in the comments down below. Let me know any of your thoughts or feelings on anything I talked about in this video. And for your question of the day, I would love to hear about how you listen to audiobooks. Are you an audiobook newbie? Are you a big audiobook listener? Do you use multiple platforms or just 1 or 2? Or are you just starting to get into it and try to figure out what is a good option for you? Let me know in the comments down below. If you guys like this video, it does help if you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time.